Welcome to the Supply Chain EX. I'm your host, Glenn Kepke. I am joined by none other than Seve Carnera from FourKite. So, Seve, good to see you again. How are you doing?
Great, Glenn. Good to speak with you again.
Likewise. So, in our first episode, we talked a little bit about the broader YMS market. And in this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the industry research that FourKite's recently produced on behalf of the Fortune 500 market. And so we surveyed over 300 companies within the Fortune 500 to better understand, what are the key things that they're focused on, what are the key challenges, and how they're leveraging or not leveraging technology to support their initiatives within their warehouse management and yard operations. And so within today's dialogue around yard management and the research, just to remind folks, what yard management solutions do is help automate, create efficiencies, and create security within any warehouse that has a large drop trailer lot. This helps from the physical movement of goods from the gate check-in process, through the loading process, through the trailer waiting in the yard, as well as the driver coming to pick up that trailer and exit that facility. And as time's gone on, much like many other industries and within logistics, technology has continued to accelerate to create efficiencies through different digital solutions in the market. So there are two key metrics that really stood out in the report that, Seve, I'd love to get your inputs as an expert in the yard management space. The first one was really around the manual processes that folks had highlighted within both appointment management and yard management. What we found is that appointment management, 55% of the respondents claim that manual processes are their biggest challenge. And then secondly, on the yard management side, 52% of respondents claim that manual processes were their biggest challenge. Given your tenure in seeing digital solutions transform how companies are operating within their warehouse and their yard, curious to get your take about, one, why are companies bogged down with this? And two, how are we increasing the technology adoption in today's world?
Yeah, great question, Glenn. So first and foremost, I think there's still an audience out there that really doesn't understand the benefits of a YMS system. And the reasons for that, I think, is because a lot of emphasis and focus has been placed on both the WMS system and the TMS system. And those take priority over something like a yard management system. So in and of itself, I think that also brings it slows down the progress that organizations are making with trying to digitize a yard and have that visibility to the items in the yard. The other challenge, I think, as well, too, that a lot of organizations face is that you've got a very different gamut of different users that are using a YMS system. Starting from your gate personnel, all the way to dock workers that may be calling trailers to the dock doors, and other individuals such as your spotter drivers or your yard drivers. So that in and of itself, I think, also brings in different dynamics in trying to bring in a system, because you're also including a much broader and larger user group that are actually using the system in many different ways.
That makes sense. So the second metric and kind of insight that really stood out is around the respondents. There's 22% of the respondents said that managing their gate processes are still being done on paper, right? It's almost a quarter, while only 5% have taken steps to automate these processes, right? Given, we're in a world of, technology, pretty surprising, first off, to hear that a quarter of respondents are still doing things on paper, given it's 2021. What's your take on what's there to gain by taking gate digitization to the next level and really driving towards automation within this operation?
Yeah, another really good question. So without a doubt, it's important to try and get gates to be in a digitized format so that you can then track those pieces of equipment as they're coming in the yard, as you mentioned earlier. But again, the other important factor is not only giving them the ability to be able to do arrivals and departures, for example, through an application, but then also giving those employees the ability to be flexible in how they do that. And what I mean by that is by giving them a tablet that they can actually do, for example, CT pad inspections and be able to walk around the piece of equipment to do that, and then also do the arrival based off of that tablet and that information. I think that in and of itself also increases fluidity at the gates, number one, and number two, makes those guard personnel that much more efficient to increase the throughput at the gates as well.
That makes sense. Yeah, I'd liken it to, like the clear process at the airport, right?
Okay.
So historically, you've had a TSA agent, checking your passport or your ID. Obviously, automation, just in terms of real world personal example, in this modern age with the clear system being able to drive toward efficiency, security, and ultimately cleanliness too, given the post-COVID world. So Seve, appreciate you joining the Supply Chainiacs. For our listeners, please join us again next week to learn more about the research that FourKites has published on yard management in the state of the industry and how you can take tangible steps to implement your yard operations. So stay safe, everyone, and we'll see you soon.